Well, a lot behind all this, and to talk more about California's changing climate, we are joined by Daniel Kreeger. Daniel is the Executive Director and co-founder of the Association of Climate Change Officers. Daniel, thanks very much for joining our program. We appreciate it. I want to begin by talking about how frustrating is it for you when you talk about climate change, when you have politicians, other people say, well, you know, you're talking about climate change. Look how cold it is in California right now. But I mean, it is extreme weather conditions all over the map that really kind of dictate climate change.
Yeah, we've had decades to learn and get prepared. And we've put it to the end of the line in terms of priorities, and now it's coming to roost as a result. Politicians really need to get smart on this. They need to understand about the volatility, the implications for infrastructure and preparedness, the implications on our economy and our vitality, and we've got to get to work on this.
And California, it's kind of the poster child for all this. It has experienced such extreme weather in recent years, and fires and the long-going drought, and then the torrential rains. And even with the rains, there are some watersheds that may not come back to normal in my lifetime.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of different poster children, and they don't all look alike. California's had mega drought, followed by these huge monsoon atmospheric river events that, when you add them on top of a drought with hardened ground, create even more flood-worthy conditions than you might see from that volume of rain, because there's nowhere for the water to go. On the other side, you go to a place, you know, in the mid-Atlantic, or you go to South Florida, you get a different poster child, and the experiences look different, feel different, but they're equally as volatile, they're equally as dangerous, and they're hurting people.
Yeah, you talk about Miami Beach, for example. I mean, there's going to be places that are going to be underwater in 10 or 20 years where there are high rises, southern New Orleans, I mean, Louisiana, all the problems they've had down there. But getting back to California, talk about the correlation to climate change and really how difficult it has been for that state over the past several years.
Yeah, well, you know, on the heels of going through this mega drought, where you saw you saw a fertile ground for wildfire, you see major water problems, and the water problems were the insufficient water problems. Ground hardens, and now you've got the other end of the spectrum happening, and you know, unfortunately, some people will think, oh, well, this is great. We're getting the water that we needed. You know, unfortunately, we're not getting it the way we need it. And so trying to harness that to rebound and get back to some semblance of normalcy is not really happening. The pendulum is swinging too wildly. And this is going to be a difficult task. We're going to have to rethink where we put things that we care about, how we prepare, how we fund things, and how we protect ourselves.
Yeah, let's go a little bit deeper on that. Talk about the economic impact on California and its industries. No matter what it tries to do, it's going to be very difficult to figure out what's going to happen in the spring, what's going to happen in the summer, and then later on in the year.
Well, I mean, first of all, if you look at the wildfires over the last decade, Northern California and the state of California had to face the real likelihood of a utility that could not endure the damage caused by its own infrastructure, where conversations were being had about potentially making it a public utility, and ultimately where law was passed to cap their liability. When you're looking at that kind of economic implication, where 90-some% of those wildfires were caused by transformers, and now you've got stormwater drainage infrastructure and other types of infrastructure that can't endure the flooding. And the reality is, when those flood events happen, people are not going to get 100 cents on the dollar back. My family, when we got hit by Hurricane Irma, my parents got 30 cents on the dollar back.
Wow.
And that was in South Florida. The scale of this is too much in too quick a time for us to be ignoring. It's all hands now to prepare the economic vitality of people today and tomorrow.
Okay, Daniel, any ultra-conservative political candidate or political officer out there right now watching us talk is shaking their head at you, going, this is nonsense, this is nonsense. So what can a state like California do, or is it already doing, to get ahead of the next natural disaster?
Well, I mean, every investment, every dollar spent on infrastructure today needs to be with these extreme swings in mind and with future proofing in mind. Every dollar that's spent wisely towards being adaptive, towards being resilient, and towards reducing emissions. It's got to be all three of those. One of them and not the others is wholly illogical. Every dollar spent has to be spent smart. And if we can do that, we can make a dent on this.
Okay, real quickly, you have 30 seconds. Tell us how we can do that.
Well, it's building codes, it's zoning ordinances, it's infrastructure design, it's training people for the world that we're entering into and not the one that we used to be in, to be able to thrive and ensure success.
I like that. The world we're entering, not the one we used to be in. Daniel Kreeger, thanks very much. We appreciate your insight.
Thanks for having me.